So a lot has happened between the last video that I uploaded and this one, but getting the most pressing question out of the way, I did finish Inktober. I definitely went into crunch time, and the last 9 pieces I did on the 30th and the 31st of October. I do still intend to create videos for each of the remaining pieces. I recorded the video time-lapse portions. It's just a matter of recording the voiceovers and actually editing them, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to keep up with a daily schedule going into November or not, but eventually I will get them all out, so thank you all so much for bearing with me. And I also have a couple of other videos recorded that just need edited as well. But with all of that being said, I am going to transition us into talking about the piece that I'm creating in today's video. And this is day number 19. I don't think I said that yet. And this is where I started pushing back into pieces that were a little more complex because I had taken about a week's break and was doing some simpler pieces to kind of ease myself into it. However, with this one, I wanted to do a more complex pose with a more interesting subject matter, and I think that I did achieve that. One of the things I knew going into creating this piece is that I wanted something more medieval feeling than some of the other pieces I had done during Inktober. I have been tending towards drawing more intricate dresses as of late, but none of them were particularly medieval in their overall appearance. Some of them could have been interpreted that way, but I wanted this one to be a little more purposeful. However, I will say that the dress, especially the top of the dress, feels a little bit strange to me. It just feels a bit more bland and less detailed than I had initially intended. When I look a little bit closer, I probably should have pulled some of the folds of the top further into the body of the figure, and that could have added more dimension and more line work where there isn't any. But in the moment, I didn't even think about it, so it is what it is now. I do find it kind of funny that art seems to work this way for me, because when I first started teaching myself how to draw, I would draw super complex things without really knowing the basics. That's always been the way that I've learned best. I tend to throw myself full force into things and learn from my mistakes instead of trying to perfect basics. I would look at my finished pieces, see what I wanted to improve on, and then make an active effort to do so in my next piece. However, now that I feel like I'm a little more familiar with art in general, it is a lot easier to slack off and not push. When I first started learning, I didn't really have a comfort zone to stay in, but now that I have learned a little bit, it is easy to stay inside of that zone, and that is very much something that I'm trying to be better at. It's not even an intentional thing. It's not something where I sit down to draw and I think, oh, I don't want to draw something complicated, I want to stay in my comfort zone. It just happens naturally when I allow myself to sketch without much thought. And so I have to make an active effort to push outside of that. Now, I mentioned in my last video that I was going to talk a little bit about how I had worked towards catching up after falling so far behind on Inktober. And I did complete my Inktober challenge, as I mentioned previously, so I think I'm still qualified to talk on this subject. As I said then in that video, the main way that I have been doing this is through the combination of chunks of time and breaks. I start things off by deciding what I need to do, and then I break it up into more manageable pieces. I will work for 20 to 25 minutes at a time and then take a 5-ish minute break. For me, and for a lot of people, this works very well. It helps with focus because even if you don't want to do something, you can tell yourself that you're able to push through and focus for 20 minutes. It's kind of the same mentality that a lot of workout programs use. If you don't think that you can do something, try doing it for a minute. You can do anything for a minute. And it's the same kind of idea here. And in the end, this typically leads to less procrastination, at least on my part. I will end up focusing for 40 to 50 minutes on the hour, as opposed to procrastinating and dragging things out for much longer than they need to be dragged out for. And something else I will say that is kind of interesting about this method is that even though you might expect yourself to be less tired because of all the breaks you're taking, I actually end up more tired using this method because I've been productive for longer in total. I am also very much the type of person who becomes very guilty if I'm not doing the things that I think I should be doing. And so having a scheduled time where I say this 5 to 10 minutes is my break time takes a lot less of a toll on me than procrastinating for 10 minutes. Because with the procrastinating 10 minutes, I feel guilty, whereas with the 10-minute break, I feel more like that was the intention, and overall it's easier mentally on me as well. Overall, that was how I managed to create 4 to 5 pieces in a day when I was trying to catch up with my Inktober project. It is an interesting system, and not necessarily one that I came up with on my own. It's something I've kind of put together over many years and different systems, and it is something that has generally worked for me and helped me to complete the drawings that I needed to do. Now, one last thing before I finish this video is something that I will probably talk about in a future video as well, but that is the fact that I am almost 100% sure that the paper I'm using is different than the paper I started with. Essentially, I have been buying the same Strathmore brand watercolor paper for the entire time that I've been drawing, or at least the entire time that I've been painting. And for some reason, when I repurchased the paper because I ran out midway through the month, the texture was completely different and I hate it. This piece was done on that paper, and I think you can tell that I'm having difficulty with the washes. I'm having trouble laying down flat amounts of color. I have to scrub into the paper to even get the ink to adhere to it. And I am not sure what happened. I don't know if Strathmore changed the way that they make their watercolor paper sometime between the last time I purchased watercolor paper and now, which would have probably been maybe 6 months. I'm not sure when the last time I bought paper specifically was, but it must have been somewhere around there. So if anybody has any idea what the heck happened, I would love to hear from you. If you've experienced the same thing, or if you know for a fact that they changed it, I'm just really genuinely curious because it really confused me and I, again, hate it. It doesn't work. The new paper doesn't work. And I think a lot of my later Inktober illustrations I don't like as much as I could have because I was struggling with the paper. So I apologize for that little tangent, although I will probably be talking about that more in a future video where I can dive a little more into what the precise problems/differences were. But until then, thank you all so much for watching. You can subscribe to see more videos like this or very different from this in the future. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.